welcome back to my channel for my 2021 holidays or Christmas gift guide. Yes, it's that time of year again and I cannot believe it. It's only just over a month away. And if you're like me, you've probably already even started buying your presents, so I wanted to get in there before it was too late, particularly with, I know there being quite a few delays at the moment with printing and paper in the publishing world, so if you are looking to buy someone something a little bit bookish, you may want to think in advance of the holiday season. Obviously I do upload these videos in lead up to Christmas, but they are just bookish gift guides. They are not Christmas specific. You don't have to celebrate Christmas. You don't have to be looking for a Christmas gift. They can be wonderful gifts for any time of year, for any person, or even for yourself. So with that being said, I'm going to crack on with the books, most of which did come out this year, or at least the edition came out this year. If you'd like more recommendations, however, I will link my previous year's gift guides down below, but I always feel like sticking with more recent releases means the person you're buying for is less likely to already own them. So without further ado, let's take a look at the books. I'm going to start with adult gifts, so books aimed at adults, and work my way down to children going through young adults and teens. So hopefully that will help organise that video for those of you who are only in the market for gifts for certain age groups, but may also just provide inspiration for a range of different gifts for everybody in your life. And these are of course absolutely genderless. It's all about considering what the person you're buying for is into and enjoys, and whether this book might be for them. So let's start with adult fiction, then move on to adult non-fiction. And these are my adult fiction recommendations. So the first one I'm going to share with you is Cursed Bunny by Bo Ra Chung. This is a piece of South Korean literature. It's a short story collection, particularly in the speculative horror subgenre. And the reason I wanted to put this on this list, even though it maybe sounds a little dark for a gift, is because I know a lot of people have recently watched and enjoyed Squid Game on Netflix, which is a dark South Korean television show that comments on capitalism in South Korea and the wider world. And this short story collection in particular very much focuses on the horrors of capitalism and patriarchy in South Korea and wider, and draws on similar themes in that respect. Now, it's different. The plots of each story are very unique. It is not a rehashing of Squid Game in any way, but if you find it useful to have a comparative recommendation with a TV show or a film, and you know someone who enjoyed Squid Game, this one would be such a great gift. It's a very striking cover, and it does have French flaps and is bound in like a really nice high quality way. So again, I think that suits the fact that it would be a gift, but also I just think the themes and the topics are something that a lot of people will enjoy if you know they enjoyed Squid Game. So yes, this is my first gifting suggestion. Moving on to a book that actually came out 10 years ago but has recently had a new edition come out. We have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So yes, this book has been out for a decade already. Why therefore is it in this gift guide? Well, not only is this a beloved sort of modern classic, a lot of people adore this book, but it's had a bit of a resurgence in popularity around the 10-year anniversary. It's been going viral everywhere online and it's garnering a new audience. It's a Greek myth retelling of Achilles and Patroclus' love story from Greek myth during the Trojan War. And because of all of that love over time that it has garnered, as well as the popularity of Madeline Miller's other Greek myth retelling, Circe, Bloomsbury decided to bring out this gorgeous new special hardback edition. And I think this would make such a gorgeous gift, both for someone who's already a lover of Song of Achilles but doesn't own this edition, because I'm sure they would love to have it on their shelves if they enjoy beautiful covers, which this is of course, or somebody who hasn't yet read it and you think might like it. Perhaps they're into Greek mythology, perhaps they enjoy tragic love stories, perhaps they enjoy beautiful prose, which I know many of us do, then this is just also a gorgeous edition and a gorgeous copy to pick up for them, and I think would just be such an exciting one to unwrap. On the topic of Greek myth retellings, I did also want to include Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, because again, Greek and Roman myth retellings continually seem to be growing in popularity. It's something that it feels as though, from my perspective as an ancient historian, has had a resurgence in the past sort of 5 to 10 years. but is just building momentum more and more. People love Greek myth retellings, and I know many people are always looking for new ones. So again, if you know somebody who already enjoys Greek myth retellings or just enjoys mythology and may enjoy the subgenre but hasn't tried it yet, this is a great one to check out. This is a retelling of the story of Ariadne, naturally, who is the princess of Crete and the sibling of the Minotaur, so it all ties back into quite a famous myth, but focusing on the character that perhaps doesn't usually get as much attention, which I really enjoy. So if you also know somebody who enjoys kind of feminist retellings, reclaiming of women's voices from history and myth, then this one is fantastic. Plus, it's stunning, and I am a sucker for a beautiful book as a gift. This is the Waterstones exclusive edition, but the regular hardback, which is in this blue with white highlights, is also stunning. So whether you buy it from Waterstones or not, you're going to get a gorgeous hardback. Another beautifully written and designed retelling is Sister Song by Lucy Holland. This one is actually a retelling of a British folk song known as the Twa Sisters. So again, great for anybody who's into folklore or mythology and legends, or just enjoys historical fiction with a bit of a fantastical twist. They'll probably love this, and for good reason, because it's beautifully written, it's very absorbing, it has enough fantasy to appeal to fantasy fans, but is also light enough on the fantasy that I think it will also appeal to historical fiction fans, and it's gorgeous. I mean, am I just a sucker for foiling on my book covers? Probably, but I know I'm not alone, which is why I think they make gorgeous gifts. And yes, I do have one more with gold foiling. I'm pretty sure this is the last book with gold foiling on the front, but you know, like I said, it's a popular book design and for good reason. This is The Mad Women's Ball by Victoria Mass. This is a book that has been translated from the French into English. First up, this is another stunning novel, one that I think will appeal to a lot of readers, literary fiction, historical fiction, feminist fiction, because it deals with the treatment of women's mental health in 1800s France. It's set at a women's mental hospital and the mistreatment of these women and the way in which women are subordinated by society, accompanied by an incredibly compelling cast of characters and plotline. It is also stunning. Like, look at those end papers. This is just a beautifully bound book that I think anyone would love to unwrap, even beyond the wrapping paper to the dust jacket. So yeah, I think a lot of people will enjoy that this Christmas. And then lastly, for adult fiction, I am sorry, but I had to do it. I'm including my new fantasy novel. I mean, I wouldn't be an author if I didn't take the opportunity for a little bit of self-promo. And if you don't know, I published my first fantasy novel this year, The Flames of Albiyon, by myself, Jean Mingus. And it's the first in a high fantasy series set at a university following a young scholar who unwittingly awakens a dragon's egg, and about their journey together. Like with every book I recommend, I think this will be for some readers and not for other readers, but if you do know somebody who enjoys fantasy, who enjoys queer representation in their book, who enjoys a sapphic romance between two women and is looking for more of that in their literature, plus is looking for something a little bit more hopeful and cheerful and full of positive relationships, then this might be one to pick up for them, because that was my focus throughout writing this, was writing a hopeful story, and I still find it kind of difficult to find hopeful fantasy myself, especially with queer rep, so I wanted to make you aware that this existed and also take this opportunity to let you know you can now order it into bookstores. It is now available to order into any bookstore. You can purchase it on the Wordery, Book Depository, Waterstones websites, including everywhere it was previously available, and you can go into any local bookshop, independent or chain, and order a copy. I will have all of the information linked in the description box down below, including the ISBN number to order it in and the places that you can already purchase it. So yeah, thank you for allowing me to recommend this one to you. Now let's move on to the adult non-fiction. So first up, this one is for the feminists and the historians, those who love to read about women's rights and women's voices throughout time, and that's Burn It Down, edited by Brianne Fass and subtitled Feminist Manifestos for the Revolution. This book, published by Verso, is literally a collection of feminist manifestos from feminist movements throughout time and feminist organisations throughout time, because it would be a lie to say that all feminist organisations and movements have always agreed with each other. And as sort of culture and society has changed around them, their priorities have perhaps changed, and they have formed new manifestos and new plans and new priorities. and it's all documented here. So in the contents, for example, we have listed manifestos from the 90s, from the 2000s, from the 1800s, some focusing on queer women's rights, some focusing on black women's rights, some focused on anti-capitalist feminism, some focused on body positivity feminism, some focused on witchy feminism. Everything is here, and it's such an interesting one to flick through and read a manifesto at a time, and also to read multiple and compare them all to one another. And although this is an adult book and it's in the adult section, I actually think there are probably a lot of teens out there that would enjoy reading this, learning all of the different perspectives on feminism and finding where they sit amongst it all. Since I did briefly mention witchy feminism there, I'm going to next show you Symbols of the Occult by Eric Shaleen, a directory of over 500 signs, symbols and icons by Eric Shaleen. This one is perfect for anybody who is interested in superstition, occult, witchcraft, the paranormal, and its history and its significance to different cultures and different peoples throughout time. It really compiles together a wide array of occult symbols, from ancient Egypt to the zodiac to Mayan glyphs to lucky numbers to mandalas and so much more. These symbols that have been significant to people in the past and are significant to people now throughout cultures. It doesn't focus on one type of magic or mysticism. It goes through it all and is a really nice introduction and visual aid to anyone interested in that topic. So these are some of the pages. There are photographs, there are also illustrations, and it just really covers a wide breadth of topics which I know are incredibly popular. A lot of people are interested in these subjects, and this is a beautifully bound book that they may therefore enjoy. A little bit darker, however, is this gorgeous hardback book, Gothic, An Illustrated History by Roger Luckhurst, published by Thames and Hudson. Both these books are published by Thames and Hudson, who publish some of the most beautiful coffee table and educational books out there with so much depth and information, and this is no different. I've been poring over it myself, and I know I would have been thrilled to receive it as a gift. This one is perfect for people who are into history, for people who are into art, for people who are into literature, because all of those things the Gothic has permeated. The Gothic is a genre, it's a genre of architecture, it's a genre of literature, and so much more, and it has a very rich history, and this book takes you through that. It goes into old Hollywood, even video games, places that you may never have really expected to encounter the Gothic are revealed in this book, and it's one that, again, I just think so many people would enjoy. Flicking through the Gothic is something that is incredibly popular, and this book does a masterful job of exploring it. If you want to veer away from like the hefty hardbacks, however, my next non-fiction book is a paperback, and that is A World Beneath the Sands by Toby Wilkinson, Adventures and Archaeologists in the Golden Age of Egyptology. So my speciality is as an ancient Greek historian, but I love all of ancient history, and I have studied and read up on and researched Egypt whenever I've had the chance, because it's such a fascinating subject and such a fascinating culture that I know captures so many imaginations from young to old. And if you know somebody that maybe had an interest in the Egyptians in the past, who's maybe indicated that they may be curious to learn more about the Egyptians, and this is such a perfect entry level book. It is both detailed and academic in the sense that it's well researched and full of information, but it's also accessible and just full of interesting tidbits. Plus, I enjoy the framing of it as a look at the study of Egypt and Egyptology as a whole. So I'm sure you know somebody that will enjoy this book. And then lastly, for adult non-fiction, is one that I also think would be great for young adults and teens as well, and that's The Middle Ages, A Graphic History by Eleanor James and Neil Max Emanuel. So written and illustrated collaboratively between both contributors. And this one is pretty much what the title suggests. It is a graphic history of the Middle Ages. These are some of the pages on the inside. Plenty of text, but also really fun, detailed illustrations that are both honest but also comical and really capture the imagination. This one, like I said, can be read by adults. It has so much content. It doesn't lack any history for being a graphic guide, but I also think it's accessible because of that. And I've always felt that graphic novels and graphic non-fiction is such a great way to get into non-fiction or a new non-fiction subject. It's the way I've gotten into lots of new non-fiction subjects, so if you're looking to get into the Middle Ages or know somebody who would like to, then this is a great one to pick up. Alright, so my next recommendation really has no age range, so I'm slotting it in here between adult and young adult because I think it would be perfect for both, and it's actually a book club journal. So this is Books and Quills book club journal, and Books and Quills, aka Sana, is a YouTuber and a friend of mine who recently brought out the most stunning book club journal. Like, first of all, can we just talk about the design of this book, how gorgeous it is? But this is such a substantial journal. So it has all of the traditional parts for a book club journal. There's a page that I filled in there. Here's a blank page where you put all the information on the books, like title, author, when you started it, when you finished it, what format you read it in, and then you can make note of your first impressions, what your thoughts were when you finished the book, the characters and the themes of the book, and any notes and questions that might be useful for your book club meeting, as well as pages to remember and sections to add more details once you've had your discussion. And I actually started a book club with a few friends of mine this past year, and it's been so nice using a physical journal to record our meetings and record the books that we read, because not only does it help me think through the books, some of which have been so random and not like anything I would usually pick up, and therefore I've had a lot of thoughts on, but also because I'm so excited for when I've completed this to have it forever and have that record of the book club that my friends and I participated in. Like, I think that's going to be such a precious and special thing to own and be able to look back on, and otherwise I'd probably very easily forget what we've read. But more than that, what this book also has is a ton of like advice on starting up book clubs. So we've got a bunch of advice on how to start a book club, deciding what you're going to read, how to make sure everybody feels included, how you can organise and meet up, whether it's via Zoom, which is how my book club reads, or if it's in person, and also just how you might want to take notes on your book if you don't typically take notes on books, and this sort of gives you advice on what you might want to note down and save for further discussions. Then at the back we have a bunch of recommendations. We have tons of lists of books that would make great book club reads, including books to learn from and take action. We have books on grief and breakups, we have books on imagining the future, we have books revisiting childhood favourites and poetry, and so much more. It's just such a substantial journal, like I said. So if you know somebody who loves reading and wants to journal their reading, they could use this without being part of a book club. But if you also know somebody who's in a book club or wants to start a book club, this could be the perfect vehicle for them, and I think would make just such a nice gift for any reader. We then have some young adult non-fiction, and that is Black Artists Shaping the World by Sharna Jackson, published by Thames and Hudson. You've already heard me rave about Thames and Hudson, and this is another one of their spectacular books, but this time aimed at a slightly younger audience, focusing in on art by Black artists from around the world. And it is such a gorgeous book. There's so many different types of art included here. Like, the artists in this book all work on very different things, and it's incredible to see what they've brought out. We have some from the past, we have some from the present who are still working now, we have profiles on each artist, as well as, like I said, some of their work included, and I think this is such an inspirational but also just beautiful book to pore over. So if you know a teenager who enjoys art as a subject, who perhaps wants to learn more about art, learn about different artists than necessarily they learn about in school, then this is such a great and beautiful book, and to be honest I think could be enjoyed by adults too. Then moving on to fiction, we actually have some more Greek myth retellings. Yes, I know we're still on that train, but honestly Greek myth retellings are for all ages. So first up we have this stunning illustrated copy of Medusa, The Girl Behind the Myth by Jessie Burton, and illustrated by Olivia Lomanek-Gill. So first up, let's just take a look at this physical book because it's stunning. Here are the end papers. Here is the book underneath the dust jacket. It is a work of art, and that's no surprise because Olivia Lomanek-Gill is a fine artist and she has produced the most beautiful, beautiful works of art to accompany this story. But it's not a graphic novel, it is very much a novel in complete prose style, and I've read this and can highly, highly vouch for it as being a wonderful introduction to a myth that's handled very sensitively for teenagers. If you're an adult, you'll still enjoy this book, but it does have a young adult audience in mind, and I really appreciate that, because this is a story of a young girl who experiences an assault which she is then punished for. But despite the tragedy of this myth, it feels like quite a hopeful story, and Medusa is given so much character, and it feels like such a well-rounded person by the end of this story that it feels incredibly real, and I think that Jessie Burton's done a wonderful job giving voice to this character. I could wax lyrical about it for this entire video, but that's not why you're here. So if you want to hear more about the book, I actually have an interview with Jessie Burton on my podcast all about it. But yeah, I think it would make a stunning Christmas gift for so many different reasons. Then something perhaps a little bit more light-hearted is a graphic novel, and that is Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. This is volume 1, so there are future volumes to come out in this, and it is a graphic novel all about Hades and Persephone. Maybe retelling is the wrong word, because it's not necessarily trying to tell an accurate version of the story to the ancient versions. It's taking inspiration from the myth and the characters and creating a whole world and a whole new story. So it's a lot of fun, and it's one that's been incredibly popular online and then ended up getting a publishing deal because of how popular it was. So you know there's already a massive audience for it, and I think would make such a great gift for people who've enjoyed it online already but want to own it physically, or people who haven't checked it out yet and like a fun graphic novel version of Greek mythology with Rachel Smythe's own fun narrative. It is also beautifully illustrated. Like, look at how stunning this is. If you know somebody that enjoys Hadestown the musical as well, this is probably a good one. Then lastly, for young adult fiction, I have this gorgeous little book, which is the Macmillan Collector's Library edition of Journey to the River Sea by Eva Ibbotson. So all of the Macmillan Collector Library editions look like this. They have gold foiled edges, and they release classics for all ages, and this was one of my absolute favourite books as a child. Eva Ibbotson was one of my favourite authors as a child, and this is one of her books I think very much appeals to older children and teens, and is about a young girl's adventure along the Amazon River. Along with the newer novels that I like to include in my gift guides, I do always like to mention these beautifully bound versions of older books, because there's a chance that they've maybe escaped a new generation and you might want to hand it down to them, and this gorgeous new edition just came out this year. So if you know somebody that may enjoy this story, this is a beautiful edition to gift them, and if you know somebody that just collects these editions, this is a gorgeous edition. So yeah, it makes a lot of good gifts. And that, my patient viewers, brings me to the children's section of this video. Let's start with the older children, the more text heavy books, and then move on to the more picture focused books for younger kids. So in no particular order, let's go for The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers and Other Gruesome Tales by Jen Campbell and illustrated by Adam D'Souza. Yes, this is another Thames and Hudson book, because Thames and Hudson books are stunning and make beautiful gifts, what can I say? This is also absolutely phenomenal, and one I actually think you could gift to teens, particularly younger teens, but it's primarily aimed at the 7 to 11 year old age range, and it is, as the title suggests, gruesome fairy tales as told in Jen Campbell's gorgeous lyrical style and with the most creepy but stunning illustrations of Adam D'Souza. So let me give you a little insight into this book. This is one of the illustrations, which is gorgeous but also creepy, which I love that combination. And when I was the age that this book is aimed at, I loved me a creepy fairy tale. I loved creepy books all round when they were aimed at my age range, and this is just such a fantastic new addition to that genre. It encompasses fairy tales from all around the world. There's incredible representation of cultures. There are Japanese fairy tales, Nigerian fairy tales, Inuit fairy tales, Norwegian fairy tales, and so many more collected in here, and I can imagine there are a ton of younger people in your life who would enjoy this. We then have a middle grade novel called Starboard by Nicola Skinner. Nicola Skinner is one of my favourite contemporary middle grade writers. I love her work, and every time a new one of her books comes out in hardback, I'm so excited to get a copy because they're just stunning. The prose is stunning inside, but the books also make gorgeous gifts because, for one, look at that cover, but then open it up, you have these gorgeous end papers and a beautiful naked hardback. Like, oh, just stunning as like an item. This is the story of Kirsten, who is a child television star, but her already quite exciting life changes entirely when the ship she is aboard comes to life and starts talking to her. Yes, you heard me right. Also a novel, but with a little bit of a younger audience in mind, is Einstein the Penguin by Iona Rangeley and illustrated by David Tasman. So this one isn't like entirely illustrated, it is also like a text book. It's a novel, but it has these lovely illustrations scattered throughout, which I know is something that a lot of children really enjoy. It really helps, you know, sort of capture the imagination when they're reading the story. And this is about a family who are at the zoo when the father says to his daughter, of course the penguin is welcome to come visit us. But he doesn't realise the penguin's listening, and when they get home, the penguin turns up on their doorstep and tells them his name is Einstein and he has come to visit. And it is just such a lovely idea. It very much has that nostalgia of classics like Paddington Bear, but for a new generation, and I know a lot of kids will love this book. For something also aimed at the 7 to 11 or 12-year-old age range, we do have some non-fiction, and that is Norse Myths by Matt Ralphs and illustrated by Katie Ponder. So this is published by DK, and it is a compilation of all of the Norse mythology out there, as well as its history and its importance to Nordic culture as told by Matt Ralphs. The illustrations are stunning. This is just a brief overview of some of them, but it really adds to the storytelling and the experience of reading this book. And there is so much information in here, as well as just great storytelling. Plus you have god spreads for all of the like primary gods and goddesses in Norse myth, and you may recognise the format of this book because it is very similar to my own book Greek Myths, which came out last year and was also illustrated by Katie Ponder, so you may not have realised, but this is part of a series. My book was first in the series Greek Myths, and then Matt Ralph's book is the second in the series Norse Myths, and there is actually a third book coming out next year that I don't think I can tell you anything about, but it will be carrying on. And therefore I thought, if you know a kid that really enjoyed Greek myths last year and wants to carry on learning about mythology, they may really like this. If you know a kid that really enjoys watching the Thor movies and Loki and other kind of Norse myth inspired superhero stuff, then they may enjoy learning about the originals. And it may actually be a series that you want to start buying for a child, you know, and gifting them every year consecutively, which is always a nice tradition to start. If you know a kid that enjoys something interactive with their books, or may actually be a bit of a reluctant reader but may enjoy books once they get into them and benefit from an interactive approach, then I also want to recommend the Big Sticker Book of Bloom by Yuval Zomer. So this is part of a series published by Thames and Hudson, which is all about nature and the natural world, and illustrated by this wonderful artist and writer. But this latest installment is also a sticker book, so it adds that interactive element to the non-fiction. So these are some of the stickers that you have in the back, and gosh, I know I was a sucker for stickers when I was a kid. Like if something came with stickers, it was just 100 times better in my opinion. And you can use those stickers throughout the book to play with interactive games and learn about the natural world, and it is just beautiful all round and has stickers, so like 10 out of 10, love this. Then continuing on with the picture books and something that you might want to share with a child and read to them, we have The Invisible Guest in Moomin Valley, adapted from the Tove Jansson classic by Cecilia Davidson and Philippa Woodland. You may know of the Moomins. Moomins have been around for a very long time. They were around when I was a kid and before I was a kid. I absolutely love them. They have such a nostalgia for me, and it's really nice to see them reformatted for different ages and new generations in something like this gorgeous illustrated little version of some of Tove Jansson's stories. So I really enjoyed this, and I think this is a really great introduction to the Moomins, or just a fantastic picture book for any children you know that may enjoy a little bit of storytelling, because the Moomins are fantastic and I love them. Then last but not least for this video, we have one more picture book, which is this absolutely gorgeous and really fun formatted picture book called Mole in a Black and White Hole by Teresa Sediva. And what I love about the art in this book is that it has all been done originally in lino cut, and lino cut is a style of art that I absolutely love. It's not something I've ever gotten to do myself, but I always think it looks really beautiful. I've actually got a lino cut print on my wall that you can't see behind me. But let me show you an insight into what some of it looks like. So all of the text is on the top of the page there, with the illustration at the bottom and sometimes crossing over into it, and it's about this little mole who lives in a hole and his attempts to basically brighten up his little black and white hole, and it's just beautiful. And I don't know why, but I just feel like books have this shape where you open them this way are really fun. I don't know if that's just me, but I've always really liked that in a children's book. But those are all the books I wanted to share with you. I'm sure I could have thought of more and shared more, but this video had to end somewhere. Perhaps I will carry this on with some more recommendations over on Instagram, so follow me there if you don't already. But like I mentioned before, I do have previous year's videos that I'll link in the description box down below. And in the meantime, let me know what books you plan on gifting this year, no matter who it's for, or even what books you've asked for this holiday season. I'd love to know. But until next time, happy holiday season, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye everyone!